And then we are going to have separate meeting for each of you for each paper. Is it? Let's wait for the next 2 more minutes for other people. I don't know if any other people is going on, but let's wait for them. Okay, so I suppose to expect that you're going to almost finish your chapter 5 at least, okay? So you now just have to finish chapter 6 conclusion. So basically this chapter is just going to be just a brief overview of what have you done so far from your work. So for example, you're going to display the research objective of the paper, and then also talk about a bit of literature review, and then methodology. So basically, whatever you have done so far for your assignment paper is going to be about to be used for this dissertation paper. A brief overview of whatever you have done so far of the paper. So, for example, you have a short paragraph saying about the purpose of the chapter. For example, this chapter presents the conclusion of this study. It reflects on the finding and discussion of the finding in the preceding chapters. The study sought out to explore the driver and barriers of blah 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 something. So you are going to have different paragraph to display different overview, brief overview of each chapter of what you have done so far. Okay, so first is about the purpose of the chapter 6, and then you are going to display the objective, the topic, the purpose of the paper, and then in chapter 2, what have you done so far? In chapter 3, what have you done so far? In chapter 4, 5, that's it. So brief overview of whatever you have done so far for each chapter. Display the main key points of each chapter. For each paragraph is going to be what you're going to do for chapter 6. Okay, and that's it just about conclusion. Conclusion is just about brief overview of what have you done so far, but don't write them in a whole big paragraph. Please separate them in different paragraphs for different key points of each chapter. Does it make sense?
So basically, to have different headings on bullet points.
Just the whole. You don't have heading for them, but you are going to combine them together in one big paragraph. Does it make
Okay,
sense?
so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, me. Do we have to make any citation at this point?
Yes.
Okay, we should
Citation
cite.
from previous citation. Don't fight
Okay.
now. New citation.
Okay. All right.
But whatever you have done so far, you just need to put some of them here. You can, to be honest, to me, you don't have to have citation for everything because basically they were just your finding from previous discussion above. Okay, you can put like 1, 2 or something if you are using again like quotation or something, or if you don't want to use citation, it's still okay because this is just conclusion. Don't use new citation or reference. You can you can not no you can you don't have to have citation in this paper, or you can have it if you are putting again one quotation or something. Does it make sense? Or if you don't use
Okay.
quotation, you don't have to have it because this is
Okay.
conclusion. As long as you're not going to put new reference or um citation, then you will be fine because that's just conclusion. Don't try to put more idea in this part. Okay,
All right.
and that's it for chapter 6. That's the basic one ever. The easiest chapter ever. But for chapter, but at least, at least remember that even though I was saying, okay, chapter 6 is just a brief overview of each chapter, but at least at the end of chapter 6, the last paragraph ever need to display your findings so far as clear as possible. Does it make sense? Because everyone usually, when they read chapter 6 conclusion, they will more focus on the first paragraph and the last paragraph ever, because obviously quite long discussion, brief overview of whatever we have done so far, and as a viewer, reader, they tend to focus more on the first paragraph and the last paragraph of this chapter. So first paragraph, please display the purpose of this chapter, the objective of the research, and last paragraph should show whatever you have done in the middle. But last paragraph should show the finding, the how should I say, the last finding ever of the paper, of the research. Does it make sense?
Yes, please.
Yeah. And last time when we were talking about the chapter 5 discussion, I want you to add 2 small sections at the end of chapter 5. I didn't say this one because like I want you to finish your discussion for each team first, and I want you to add this one, this 2, 1, 2 at the end ever. So the first section of chapter 5 you should add at the end of chapter 5, okay? It's about critique of the study. And the last one is going to be about recommendation. So I will say why is it the 2 section at the end? So basically critic of the study, just about critic of whatever you have used for this study or this research. For example, you use semi-structured interview. So what would be the benefit and disadvantages that can against you to have the best result of this research? And you are going to use thematic analysis. So what will be the benefit and drawback? The hardest or strong, because not every study is perfect. No, there's no perfect study. So you need to critique your study. So you may choose semi-structured interview. Okay, that's a good thing. Blah blah. It helps you to discuss about or collecting data. However, there will be the biggest drawback ever. This semi-structured interview display for your study. You found out this one is the most critical part of your study. Or you can talk about thematic analysis. Choose some critic or display or discuss some critic and limitation of your research. You may choose semi-structured interview. You may choose thematic analysis. You may choose sample size, because most of your research within this group, you just have like 7 or 10 interviewee or interviews. So that's the reason why it will be a limit, making your research having some disadvantage, something. Does it make sense? Or
Yes.
you just have one organization for research. That's why this make your paper being or having limitation. So that is about critique of the study and recommendation. So for some of you up to this point, you may have recommendation for each finding discussion already, but please still make or create this separate part in case reader or viewer may go past your recommendation for each finding a discussion. You still have one separate part for them to see. Okay, so this student clearly have recommendation after all for her or his findings. Does it make sense?
Yes, Amy.
Okay, so please add those two separate sections at the end of chapter 5 discussion. The first is going to be critique of the study, and the last one is going to be recommendation. Recommendation is going to be just about whatever you have found so far from your discussion. You are going to suggest that, okay, so after finding doing this data collection discussion about the driver and barriers of implementing this last mile delivery option in logistics management in this industry, at which organization or at what type of organization, blah blah blah, depends on your topic. It's going to providing understanding of blah blah something, and at the end of the day the recommendation blah blah going to be like this. Does it make sense? For recommendation you don't have to have citations too much, because basically recommendation is going to be your recommendation based on your finding and research. Does it make sense? Because some student may ask me, so Amy, for recommendation that's going to be my word based on my findings. So do I need to have reference? If based on your finding and if based on your some case study relevant to your finding, you use it to put recommendation. You may have some citations or references. But if you just based on your findings above and you make recommendation, you don't have to have citations. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Emmy, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Okay. So during my interview, there are particular questions that were geared towards getting recommendations from the interviewees. Now, when I was presenting my findings, due to the way it was structured, I didn't find a way to put those questions. So I was thinking, where can I bring up those questions in the work? I couldn't bring them up under barriers or drivers. So I'm thinking the best place to bring up some of those questions. Like there's a question I asked about how does smart lockers improve logistics operations, and I had already asked a question about drivers, so I didn't use that question in my findings at all. So, like, why do you suggest I could bring up that question?
You should bring up the questions. Basically, it's going to be on your chapter 4 findings,
Okay, that's it.
because
It could
you
come
are,
under recommendation.
yeah.
Okay, okay,
So basically, anything about like quotation about questions should display in chapter 4, and then chapter 5 is going to base on it to discuss. Okay, as I said, some of you may already have recommendation idea in each discussion for each team already, but I
okay,
still want you guys to have one separate section of recommendation at the end of your chapter 5. Why? Because some reader or viewer, when they read or they skimming through your work, they may pass through your recommendation idea. Does it make sense? So we just put a separate part at the end of the section to make sure they know you already have recommendation from your interview of finding and of discussion. Does it make sense? Because
okay. All right.
until this point, up to this point, I can make sure for you some student they already have recommendation discussion for each team already in their work. But I still want you to have one more separate section to one more time emphasize it. Does it clear?
Okay.
So
All right.
make sure everyone, when they look at your work, they say, okay, this student already have it. They're not going to pass or miss this point because recommendation is just going to be something like at the end of the day, after everything, finding, discussion, interview, is going to be the most extract important part. We shouldn't miss it. And the reader viewer shouldn't miss it. It's just so important. So make sure they see it, a separate heading. Okay?
All right.
And Shumista, you asked me about the word count, right? In your email.
Yes, Amy, because see, at the end of each chapter, we have to write the summary. So I wanted to know if that summary is a part of the word count as well.
If I'm not mistaken, the summary part is not going to be included into your work because usually if you guys read research paper or dissertation paper, summary is going to be at the end or and in a separate paper from the conclusion of each chapter. If there's a, should I say, a a good performance of presented paper is going to be at least chapter one, introduction of chapter one, right? Everything, and then the summary is another separate paper from the chapter, and then separate paper to the next chapter. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So
So
usually
it's
some,
not a part of that, right?
yeah,
The word.
but summary just a short paragraph. Don't spend too much word summary. To be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, that's what. But there are like, I have already exceeded the word count. I need to reduce, but I wanted to be sure that summary is not a part of the word count.
You guys can following the word count guidance from Scott for the first start ever.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not really I'm sure say care much about the word count if you are having a little bit of ranging different from the guidance from Scott because it also depends on the quality of each chapter, to be honest. But like don't be different too much. Does it make sense? Because that's still a valid structure and guidance from Scott. Okay.
Yeah. So, Amy, I had another doubt about the
Yeah.
discussion chapter. So, when I was writing the discussion chapter, so what you want us to do, like to discuss deeply the main themes, like the main objectives or the barriers as well? Because if I try to incorporate the information about the drivers and their sub themes, it's already like I mean, it's around like 4,000 words already. And then I tried to incorporate the barriers and their sub themes as well. So it exceeded the word limit. So I was like, what should I do?
So basically, I'm going to say like this for uh for example discussion on main theme for one theme properly like what you are going to spend the word for each. You're just going around 130 words or 100 words something. Don't don't talk too much. Yeah, usually around like 150 or one. It should range about like 130 to 170 for each end team. Is enough for
Okay.
sub team. Just a small discussion. That's it. Not
Okay.
not is it 200 word for each.
Okay. I get
It
that.
should, yeah, it shouldn't be big discussion because basically you are going to just link them together with your literature review
Literature.
above. Yeah. So
And
no
the
new.
other doubt was with the literature review, Amy. So
Mm.
can we incorporate like new papers, or we just have to take the citations or the papers that we have used in the literature review?
Um, Usually for the driver and barriers or
Yeah.
recommendation, you can link with new paper because sometimes after doing the research, right,
Yeah.
you finding that your barriers and driver is going to be linked with another paper of
Yeah.
case
True.
study or something. Does it
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
Or
That's why I wanted to ask,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
can I
yeah,
incorporate new papers?
yes, or
Okay.
sub teams
Yeah.
because sub team were just in new emergent things, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you didn't have them in your
Yeah, I
literature
didn't
review
add
much.
them before. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can add more new citation and reference here. But for
Okay.
main theme, mainly based on the literature review you already had in
Yeah.
your literature review. Clear?
Yeah, get that.
And for
Yeah.
each discussion of theme or sub-theme, it shouldn't exceed 200 words, just around at 100 something. That's it.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, because I have explained them in detail, so that's why it went like
Yeah.
4,000 or 6,000. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for the
No
feedback.
worries. Any other questions? If you don't have any other questions, haha, I'm going to give you 1 week with a meeting. So next week we're not going to have meeting. 21st, no have meeting, but for 21st, you are going to receive the schedule for individual meeting. At that moment, I want to see your completed paper, and then I'm going to have separate meeting with each of you to give you feedback on your paper, and then you are going to have 2 weeks on your own to fix it and submit it. If I'm not mistaken, you're going to submit it in 4th of September, right? Some or
8th
12th
of September.
8th of September, right? So you have 2 weeks on your own to fix it. Last time yourself after hearing my feedback individually. Is that okay?
Yes. Amy, I have a doubt again. Sorry.
Yes?
So there is this thing that we have to do about the 3-minute presentation as well.
Hmm?
Can I seek some guidance from you regarding that as well?
You remember the conceptual framework I asked you to draw.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to use it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that
So
now. Yeah.
basically, first, obviously, you are going to display the structure of your work. Okay. So
Yeah.
let them know clearly how many chapters you have at the end at the start. And for each chapter, display clearly what you're going to display. So basically, you are going to present the heading of your paper.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we are having the conceptual framework for each team is going to be used in your discussion, in your presentation.
Okay.
You display it on the screen presentation so for people clearly see it. We whatever we have done so far is always useful,
Okay.
and that's where we're going to use it.
Okay. Get that. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. So 21st, next we are going to see each other next week. That's going to be time for you to finish it up, touch it up, work on yourself, make make sure the moment we are going to meet for individual meeting is going to be the perfect paper ever you were having or you are going to have at that point. On 21st, you're going to receive the schedule for meeting with me. Usually I will go for like night meeting, not the morning one like this. So because I'm going to die with learning. Anyway, so 21st, you're going to receive schedule for meeting with me. I'm going to send an invitation. If you can make it, you accept it. If you can't, just reply back that you can't and you prefer during what time. I'm going to suggest what time also for you. So I will send an invitation first. You okay with that? We go for that. If you can't, you can choose another options. I'm going to send together with it. Okay? So you're going to have 1 week of free. Next week, no meeting. 21st, no meeting in group, but it's going to be individual meeting from 21st of August. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So enjoy your day. Work well on that.